Hey, welcome to the investor.bet AFL round 24, which is the final round of the regular season betting trend preview. In this video, I'm going to go through all 9 games coming up this weekend. I'll also go through a quick preview of the Essendon Gold Coast game that's on the following Wednesday, which will be the very last game of the season. That's the rescheduled matchup from the opening round, which was missed due to the cyclone here on the Gold Coast. But in these games, I'm going to go through who I think is going to win and why, how I'm approaching betting on them. We'll go through the statistics of these sides, also the betting trends, the recent, everything you need to know to make the best betting decisions on these games. But before we get into it, let's recap what happened in round number 23. There were some really important results that have now shaped the top 8 and obviously created some important games through round 24. On Friday night, the first of 2 games, St Kilda 2-point winners over Essendon. That made it 4 straight wins for the Saints. They've won all 4 of those games by 9 points or less, so they've become that team that scrapes by close margins. Then one of the most important games of the round, Fremantle lost by 57 points at home to the Brisbane Lions. That now makes Fremantle the most likely side to miss the finals, as they're going to be pretty big underdogs in their trip over to Melbourne to play the Western Bulldogs this week. And the winner of that game will make finals, and the loser of that game will miss the top 8. On Saturday, the GWS Giants became just the second team this season to go to the Gold Coast and beat the Suns. They won by 35 points. That takes them off the fringe. Now, Gold Coast right now is sitting outside the top 8, but remember they have 2 games in hand, whereas every other team only has the 1 game left. So if Gold Coast win this week or this weekend against Port Adelaide, or the game against Essendon on the Wednesday, then they're guaranteed a spot in the finals, and they're going to start huge favourites in both. Carlton, 54-point winners over Port Adelaide. Hawthorn, 36-point winners over Melbourne. Adelaide kept their 1-game clear mark of Geelong on top of the ladder with a 3-point win over Collingwood. This win now guarantees Adelaide a top 2 finish, so they're guaranteed a home qualifying final regardless what happens in their final game against North Melbourne. But obviously it'll come down to if they win, then they get first spot. If they lose and Geelong win by a big margin in their game against Richmond, which probably seems likely, then Adelaide will drop to second and Geelong will go to first. North Melbourne, 135 to 87-point winners over Richmond. 43-point winners over the Swans, and the Western Bulldogs, 4-point winners over the West Coast Eagles. So during this round, some of the betting information that's really important to know. You can keep record of this all in the AFL Bet Finders. Home teams, they won 5 of the 9 games and also covered 5 of the 9 this season. Home sides are 101 to 96 against the spread. Favourites won 7 of the 9 games. The 2 underdogs who won were the 2 teams in the games that were the really important ones. Brisbane as the underdog against Fremantle, and GWS the underdog against Gold Coast. Favourites covered the spread in 6 of the 9 games. This season, though, underdogs 102 to 95 against the spread. 5 games went under the total, 4 games went over. Overall on the season, 109 games have gone under and only 88 have gone over the total. Very, very big under season. At the end of the year, I'll give you some recaps over how that compares to previous years, and we'll go through all of that to get you prepared for next season as well. But we're still got obviously this weekend and the whole final series left to go. There's still plenty of betting opportunities coming up. Looking at the ladder, how it currently stands, Adelaide a game clear of Geelong. So that's what I was meaning. If Geelong beat Richmond by plenty and Adelaide lose their game against North Melbourne, then Geelong can go into first. But no matter what, Adelaide is guaranteed a top 2 spot. In Brisbane, they can guarantee themselves a top 4 finish and a double chance with a win over Hawthorn. But if they are to lose that game, then they can drop right away, because if Hawthorn win, if Collingwood win, if GWS win, then all those teams can leapfrog. Plus, if the Gold Coast Suns win both of their games, then they could leapfrog the Brisbane Lions as well. So really crucial game on Sunday night between Brisbane and Hawthorn. The other really crucial game is obviously Fremantle versus the Western Bulldogs. The loser of this game will miss finals, barring either the Gold Coast Suns losing their final 2 games or GWS losing, I think it's by over 100 points in their game against St Kilda, which, considering St Kilda haven't been winning games by big margins, even when they have been winning, seems extremely unlikely. So your top 6 currently on the ladder are virtually guaranteed finals, and then Fremantle, Western Bulldogs, and Gold Coast are those teams fighting for the 7th and 8th spots. But the obviously most likely team to miss at this stage is to be Fremantle. But that game on Sunday afternoon, the Bulldogs are about $1.30 favourites. That's going to be the most crucial game, and basically an elimination final a couple of weeks early. Now, looking ahead to the games coming up, on Thursday night, we have Essendon against Carlton. Friday, a doubleheader, Collingwood versus Melbourne and Port versus Gold Coast. Saturday, there's 3 games, North versus Adelaide, Richmond versus Geelong, and West Coast versus Sydney. And then on Sunday, GWS versus St Kilda, the Western Bulldogs against Fremantle, and Brisbane versus Hawthorn. And then the makeup game from the opening round of the season, Gold Coast against Essendon. So let's get into the preview of these games. Firstly, starting with Essendon against Carlton. The Blues are $1.21 favourites, minus 27.5. All the odds are as soon as the markets go up on the Monday morning. So that's when I take these. The totals generally go up on the Tuesday morning, so they're a little bit later. But these are the markets at the beginning of the week, so you can also look at how these adjust through the week. The total right now is 166.5. Carlton, they've won 5 of the past 6 against Essendon. They won the matchup earlier this season back in round number 13. They were $1.38 favourites and won 78 points to 70. Looking through what happened in that game, Carlton got away to a fast start, which is what we've seen them do all season long. They've been one of the better first quarter, first half teams, but one of the worst second half teams, particularly in the third quarter. But they got away to a really good start here. They kicked the first 4 goals and 7 of the first 8 goals for the game. They had almost a 40-point lead early in the second quarter. Essendon worked their way back into the game, got it back down to sub 10 points early in the third. And then Carlton were able to hold a 2 to 3 goal margin through the remainder of the game. The stats for that game, possession was fairly even, inside 50s. There wasn't much between them. Free kicks were even. Clearances were very even. There was hardly anything different between the two teams in terms of the numbers they put up in this game. Carlton slightly more contested possessions. Essendon, 86 turnovers, likely the thing that cost them. As much as these are both high numbers, 86 is very, very high for a number of turnovers to make. Carlton, they're coming off a big win over Port Adelaide last week. That broke a 3-game losing streak. But Carlton, they've covered the spread in 5 straight games. So they're actually performing better than their win-loss record at 2-3 over the past 5 weeks suggests. So definitely keep that in mind. They've had a few tough games in there against Hawthorn, Fremantle, and Gold Coast, plus Brisbane and Collingwood. So effectively, if you go back and look through their past 7 games, there's really only been 2 games where you look at that on paper and say, Carlton, they're a good shot at winning that game when they've actually gone on and won both of those. This is their easiest game that they've had in basically 2.5 months against Essendon, and obviously will want to finish their season with a win. So even though they're only $1.20, I do expect Carlton to be winning this game. Zach Merritt, off that hand surgery, is expected to return at this stage. Obviously, we're very early in the week for Essendon. They are putting up a fight in games. They're not like completely rolling over. Like they only lost by 2 against the Saints, 44 against Geelong, but they were in the contest and got the margin back to about 20 points or so in the third quarter. Sydney, they lost by 14. Those are the last 3 weeks. A couple of blowouts against Gold Coast, GWS, and the Western Bulldogs in there as well. So it can kind of go either way with Essendon, but the final game of the season against a bit of a rival, I'd expect them to put up a bit of a fight. This matchup has a history of being close. 12 of the last 13 have been decided by 34 or less points. Probably would like Carlton 1-39 here as the play in this game, as opposed to laying the 27.5 points. The thing is, like Essendon, they're on this big losing streak. They've lost 11 straight games. Most likely here end up making it 12. Looking at the stats for the two sides, Carlton the better attacking side and also the better defensive side. Essendon just don't really have many points in them, which is the issue. And if Carlton turn up with the attacking firepower they had last week against Port Adelaide, scoring 118 points, which is their 3rd best overall for the season, then obviously it's going to be very, very tough for Essendon to go with them. For Essendon to win this game, they're going to need to keep Carlton to, I would say, 75 points or less, which is going to be tough to do. A few teams have been able to do it against the Blues, but Essendon don't really have the defensive ability to be able to. Their efficiency going inside 50 and also in defensive 50 is really, really poor, and do expect Carlton to capitalize on it. The total betting line for this is 166.5. 5 of the past 7 head-to-head have gone under the total. The thing with this game, you've got 2 of the worst 3 or 4 efficient sides going inside 50. So points should be fairly hard to come by. Carlton, they've had 2 of their past 3 go over, but on the season have been a huge unders team. And Essendon, they've had 5 of their past 6 games go under. So at 166.5, kind of think this total is at least 5 points too high. So I do like the under. The only way I think this game goes over is if, this being the final game of the season, these teams turn up like, well, let's just turn this into a shootout and play 10% defense. And it's kind of like a all-star game in the NBA where it just becomes goal end-to-end non-stop, because they don't really have anything to play for other than just like basically try and get a win for their fans. So that's the concern with playing the total on the under. But based on these teams' performances this year, you'd have to lean towards the under at that number. You can see the bookmakers have put this up a little bit higher, in my opinion, due to the fact that the chance of it being a little bit of a shootout. So just play that with caution, but certainly leaning towards the under. The first game on Friday night, Collingwood against Melbourne. The Magpies, $1.30 favourites, minus 21.5. They've lost 5 of their last 6 games, and they're going to start pretty big favourites here again. And the total is 164.5. Collingwood, they've won 6 of the past 7 versus Melbourne, including 4 straight. 4 of the past 6, though, they've been decided by 7 or less. They met back in round 13 this season. Collingwood winning by 1 point, 72-71. They were $1.24 favourites for that game, so slightly shorter than what they are this time around. They kicked 11 goals, 6 compared to Melbourne, 10 goals, 11. Melbourne, in what was like a fairly overall low-scoring game, it was tied at quarter time. Collingwood led by 8 at halftime, by 7 at three-quarter time, and then just by 1 at full time. Melbourne kicked 3 goals to 2 in the final term, but they just weren't quite able to get over the line in that game, even though they had 4 more scoring shots. Statistically, Collingwood had more of the ball. Melbourne had +9 inside 50s. Free kicks +9 in favour of Collingwood. Clearances +10 to Melbourne. Most of that damage done at the centre, 16-7, giving Melbourne first use quite a lot of the time out of the middle. Turnovers, both in the mid-70s, both fairly high. Another game Collingwood potentially were a little bit lucky to win, down on the inside 50s. Not what they were last week against Adelaide, that's for sure. Again, in the game against the Crows, they had significantly more inside 50s, but couldn't convert those into scoring shots. That's a little bit of an issue, as considering how Melbourne won the inside 50 count against them earlier this season. If Melbourne are doing that and Collingwood are still super inefficient in their own right, then it's going to be tough for them to win this game by a big margin. But it's obviously an important game for Collingwood here. They need to get some confidence up going into the finals. As I mentioned, they've lost 5 of their last 6. This is the second easiest game of their last 6 games. The other one was against Richmond, where they won by 36 points. This is slightly easier competition-wise, and at the end of the day, they should be winning this game. Melbourne, though, they'll look to put up a fight. They lost by 6 goals last week against Hawthorn. Prior to that, just a 6-point defeat over the Western Bulldogs. Beat the Eagles by 83, lost to St Kilda and Carlton by 6 and 8 points respectively. Now, when you look through Melbourne's form since the bye, they've played 8 games and they've only won 2 of those 8, but majority of their defeats, so of their 6 defeats, 5 of them have been by 19 points or less. So it wouldn't surprise me at all for Melbourne to keep this game close and really try and put up a fight. So I'd be looking at Collingwood 1-39 in this game as well. I'm expecting Collingwood to win just purely on the fact they're the much stronger defensive side of these two teams, currently conceding just 70 points a game, where Melbourne are conceding just under 89 points a game. But in attack-wise, there's very little between them, and just on form, Collingwood aren't really putting teams away. They only beat Richmond by 36 points, so I don't think you can go wrong with the Pies at the 1-39. The total is 164.5. 9 of the past 11 head-to-head have gone under. This is one where I feel like the bookmakers have got the total spot on for this game. Made a fair one, 165.5. Melbourne, they have been a big overside recently through their last 4 going over, but Collingwood have been a big underside with 6 straight games going under the total. So for me, no major lean, purely just I think Collingwood need to step up defensively, and with their inefficiencies, I lean towards the under, but with minimal confidence. It's not one where I think there's much value to play. The other game on Friday night, Port Adelaide against Gold Coast. Gold Coast starting favourites $1.25, minus 24.5, and the total is 169.5. Port Adelaide, they've won 14 of the last 15 against Gold Coast, but Gold Coast, they won the most recent encounter, which was round 18 last season, where they are 2.5 point favourites at home against Port Adelaide and ended up winning that game by 14 points. They had 26 scoring shots to 22. Port Adelaide kicked the first goal of the game, but Gold Coast established a 3-goal lead midway through the second quarter, and were able to kind of hold that similar 2 to 3 goal margin, maybe up to 4 goals at point through the rest of the game. And every time like Port Adelaide kicked a goal, then Gold Coast got that straight back. You can see the teams going for goal for most of that third quarter and throughout the second half. Like all through this period, it was very difficult for either side to string multiple goals together. So really this run here off Gold Coast, where they managed to kick 4 consecutive goals, is the period that won them the game. Statistics, Port Adelaide, significantly more disposals. We'll look through and see if it was mostly uncontested. But Gold Coast, they were plus 6 inside 50s, plus 6 free kicks, plus 10 overall clearances, 4 at the centre, 6 at the stoppages. Contested possessions slightly in favour of Port, and then 56 extra uncontested possessions. Both teams right around the 70 mark in terms of turnovers. This is a game I think Gold Coast will go down there and win. They'll want to bounce back off their defeat against GWS last week. They've only lost consecutive games on kind of one occasion this year. It was that period where they lost to Fremantle, Geelong, and GWS in 3 consecutive games. There was a bye in between there in round 14. But outside of that, their other 3 games that they've lost, they've bounced back with wins following that. They lost to Richmond, bounced back with a win over Sydney. They lost to Brisbane, they bounced back with a win over the Western Bulldogs. And when they lost to Adelaide, they bounced back with a 66-point win over the Brisbane Lions. So even though they're on the road here, expect the Gold Coast Suns to win, as that'll then give them a chance for top 4 in that final game against Essendon. So it's kind of worked out well for them. Not really worried about Port Adelaide's record against them. Like the current form Port Adelaide is in, it's hard to see them really being competitive. They've lost 5 consecutive games. Most of those, or 4 of those 5, by at least 38 points. The only one that was close was the game against Fremantle. Them being at home certainly gives them a better advantage and better opportunity of winning, as 3 of those 5 losses that they've had lately have all been on the road. The games at home, they lost by 6 against Freo and then 98 against Adelaide. And also, Gold Coast's last trip to Adelaide, which was back in round 19, so not that long ago, was a 61-point loss against the Crows. So, like they don't really bring the best form at the venue into this game. But I think Gold Coast, important game for them to win. They'll do enough to get over the line. I kind of expect them to win this by about this 4 to 5 goal mark. I'd lean towards them covering. If both teams hold their current form, I'd expect Gold Coast to cover, but I just think they're going to do enough to win the game without being absolutely outstanding. Stats wise on the season, there's massive differences between these two teams in attack and defense. So Gold Coast, just on season form, should be far too good. So I like them to be winning this game and winning it comfortably. The total is 169.5. The past 3 head-to-head have gone over. Gold Coast, 4 of their last 6 have gone under. Port Adelaide, they've had 4 straight games go over the total. Assuming it's fine conditions, I'd lean slightly towards the over at this number. I think we can see a game with at least 170 points, but it's going to come down to how many points Port Adelaide find. They've kind of been hovering in this 60-ish range of late, with a few low games in there as well. But I think they can find 60 plus here against Gold Coast. But once again, for them to score over into the 170s, they're going to need to put up around 110 points. So you're going to need Port Adelaide to kind of really push the 70, 75 mark. And it's just not sure if they can quite do it, but there's also the opportunity for Gold Coast to really run up a score. Port Adelaide have conceded 118, 92, 153, 133, 87. Across their last 7 games, they've conceded 118 or more on 4 occasions, and then you have Fremantle scoring 92 and Hawthorn in the rain scoring 87. So there's every chance Gold Coast will get close to that mark if they show up. So slight lean towards the over if I was to go away there on the total. North Melbourne versus Adelaide. The Crows $1.13 favourites, minus 35.5, and the total is 177.5. Adelaide, they've won the past 7 straight against North Melbourne by at least 29 points. They last met in round 3 this season. Adelaide were 41.5 point favourites. They didn't cover the spread, but they still won 114-78. And looking through at what happened in that matchup, we had Adelaide with 29 scoring shots, North Melbourne just with the 18 for that 36-point margin. It was fairly close through the most of the game, like still into the third quarter, it was still around a 2-goal margin. Then Adelaide went on this run here where they went 4 straight goals and then pushed that margin out into the mid-30s and were able to maintain that through the fourth quarter. Disposals were even, plus 8 inside 50s for the Crows. Stoppages in favour of Adelaide. Just at the centre though, it was won by North, and then around the ground 31-24 in favour of Adelaide. Turnovers even slightly more made by North Melbourne though. Contested possessions plus 11 in favour of Adelaide. Definitely expect the Crows to be winning this game to make sure they lock in that minor premiership. It's be disappointing to see them lose this game considering the spot they're in. Obviously Geelong are going to need a win to make up that percentage in their game against Richmond, which looks very likely, but I think Adelaide will do enough to win. They have only won by 3, 9, and 14 points across their last 3 games. That's against Collingwood, West Coast, and Hawthorn. So just be a little bit cautious in terms of backing them minus 35.5 in a game where all they need to do is win. I think like the better value in this game is the 1-39. There's obviously the chance that Adelaide really come out and make a big statement, but I think there's also an element of risk involved for them doing that, as well as, you know, you don't want to like risk injuries, and obviously there's a situation with Isaac Rankin at the moment as well. I think Adelaide just turn up, go over to Melbourne, get the win, make sure they're 100% right for week 1 of the finals. North Melbourne, they have a lot of margins in this 35 to 50 point range, so I feel like it's really going to be on the fringe here. But in terms of value, I do like the Crows at the 1-39, and hopefully North can close the season with a close-ish game here after their 48-point win against Richmond last week. The total is 177.5. 4 of the past 5 head-to-head have gone over. Back in round 3, there was a total of 192.5 for this game, which is a massive total and is one of the highest ones on the season. North Melbourne, they've had 6 of their last 8 games go over the total, and the Crows, their last 2 have gone under, and of their last 4, 2 have gone over, 2 have gone under. So they've been a little bit of a mixture. They started the season with overs. The mid part of the year was all unders, and now there's been a few more overs creeping in. At 177.5, I can definitely see points in this game. I don't think either team's going to have much trouble at all scoring here. Adelaide are a top 3 attacking side. North Melbourne aren't a big scoring side generally, but they are coming off a big score last week, which that 135 points that they got against Port Adelaide was a season high for them. Their next best was 125. I think North Melbourne could just throw all caution to the wind here and try and score as many as they can, regardless of how much they concede. If they really try and play a defensive game, I don't think they're going to be able to match it with the Crows, as North are the second worst defensive side and Adelaide are the number 1 defensive side. So they're kind of counting on Adelaide to just let up a bit defensively. But then you also have the narrative where Adelaide could just really try and lock down defensively here and get that dialed in. As I said, that's going to be key for their performances in finals. So it's kind of 2 ways you can go, but just with the number at 177.5, I do think it is a touch on the low side. So I would lean towards the over. I'm in Adelaide at the 1-39. Richmond versus Geelong. The Cats are $1.05 favourites, -60.5. They are now into $1.02 as well, so already a bit of movement. The total is 174.5. Geelong, they've won 5 of the past 6 against Richmond. They won the game earlier this season, just back in round 17 at GMHBA, 124 points to 52. They were $1.03. They covered the 59.5 point handicap there as well. Looking through what happened in that game, 34 scoring shots to 17. It was even kind of through that first quarter. Geelong just kicking 3 goals to 1 in the first quarter, but they broke the game open with 8 goals to 1 in the second term, 4 goals to 2 in the third, and then it was 3 goals to 2 in the fourth quarter as well to run out big winners. Stats for that game, plus 21 inside 50s, only slightly more of the ball for Geelong. Clearances, plus 9 at the centre and even at the stoppages. Contested possessions, plus 17. Fairly low number of turnovers. Like, to concede that many points and only make 58 turnovers, Richmond were very inefficient in terms of their defence and giving up like so many inside 50s in this game. That's definitely a concern, but it's kind of been the case most of the season. Expect Geelong to win this game and win it very comfortably. Geelong can't afford to lose this, as if they lost this game, then if Brisbane beat Hawthorn, then Brisbane have the opportunity to leapfrog them and get a home qualifying final. And what this also means is that then Geelong would either have to travel to Adelaide or to Brisbane week 1 in the finals, and you can guarantee they don't want that to happen. So can't see any world where Geelong lose this game, so it's just a matter of how much they win by. Most of the time they're winning games lately against these lower ranked sides, which they've basically exclusively been playing in this final third of the season. They've been winning these games by 40, 50, 60 to 80 to 100 points. Like, they haven't really had many games. Just the one against St Kilda was the only one that was under 43 points. And so I think no matter what, they're going to go very close to covering this handicap at the 60.5. So I definitely wouldn't be taking Richmond at the plus 60. It's just a matter of, you want to take Geelong to win by 61 or more. You can obviously look at goal scorers, look at disposal markets. They're really good ways to target these games where teams are playing against Richmond, as they're conceding plenty of points and also they're giving up the most disposals to opposition players. Geelong players will rack up numbers in this game. The total is 174.5. 5 of the past 7 head-to-head have gone over. Geelong, they've had 5 of their last 6 games go over, and Richmond, their last game against North went over with over 200 points scored. Prior to that, they had 6 straight games go under the total. Overall in the season, Richmond have been a big underside. I think the question is just how many points Geelong score in this game. With the handicap at -60.5 for Geelong, you're really looking at them scoring around 115 to 120 points, which for me, assuming this is in fine conditions, just about be happy with them to score more than that, particularly if it's more at the 115 mark, considering what the current line is and what the total is, that's what it should be. So yeah, I'd like Geelong to score over the 115 mark here. This is an easier game than what they played last week against Sydney, and they scored 111 in that game. Jeremy Cameron didn't kick a goal either. So yeah, Geelong should just roll in points here and do it very comfortably. West Coast versus Sydney. The Swans are $1.20 -28.5. The total is 165.5. Sydney have won 7 of the past 8 versus West Coast, including 4 in a row by at least 26 points. So straight away, that -28 looks fairly nice here for the Swans, but West Coast, last game of the season, they've only got the 1 win. This is their final opportunity. They're at home, but it kind of does seem unlikely. 94-point loss last week. Prior to that, they kept the game close against the Crows, 83-point loss against Melbourne, 49-point loss against Fremantle, 49-point loss against Richmond, both at home. They have lost 3 of their past 4 games at home by at least 49 points. The only one that he didn't was against the Crows. So, at the end of the day, if West Coast play like they did against Adelaide, they'll cover, but the consistency of them doing that has been few and far between and does seem unlikely. The Swans should run out winners, but I don't really want to back Sydney here as much as they're posting wins and getting wins here and there. I think $1.20 is very short for this side. Needs Sydney to be more so the $1.35 mark in my opinion, to make them a bet. West Coast, though, at 460, I don't want to back them either because I just think it's not the way to play this game. So Sydney to win, but just definitely not really interested in the head-to-head or handicaps in this game. The total is 165.5. And the past 3 head-to-head have gone over the total. West Coast, they've been a big underside recently. Their last 2 have gone under the total, and 8 of their last 10 overall have gone under. And then for the Swans, they've had 3 of their last 5 go under. So we've got a few trends favoring the unders here based off this matchup. Make a fair total just under 160 here. So off that would lean towards the under on this game. GWS versus St Kilda. The Giants, $1.18 minus 29.5. We've got a lot of handicaps in these like mid-20s range this weekend. Basically, almost every game is like 24 to 36, with just a few exceptions. And the total is 173.5. This is the first game on Sunday afternoon. GWS, they've won the past 3 against St Kilda, but the past 6 have all been decided by 28 or less. St Kilda, they're coming in on a 4-game win streak, but they've failed to cover their last 3. And then for GWS, they're in really, really good form. Aside from that 88-point loss against the Western Bulldogs, they have now won 8 of their past 9 games and also covered the spread in all of those 8 wins. So you'd have to think GWS will win this game and run out winners. There's a chance that it could be close, but I think if like GWS turn up and at home here, they should do that. Can definitely give themselves the best possible chance of securing a home elimination final instead of traveling week 1. It's going to depend on other results, but if they can post a good win here, it'll definitely keep them within a shot. So I like them to win this game. When it comes to like at the end of the day, they play like they did last week against Gold Coast, they'll win. And I also think GWS just have too many points in them for St Kilda. When you look at it, during this 9-game run, starting with round 14 against the Brisbane Lions, GWS have scored over 102 or more points in 8 of those 9 games, and the Bulldogs game was the only exception. And for the most part, they've kept opposition teams, particularly recently, into sub 80 scores, which is kind of all St Kilda usually get to. Like even in these games they've won, their last 3 wins, they've only scored over 87 points in 1 of their last 10 games since the bye in round 13. And that's not going to be enough against GWS here. So like the Giants to win this game comfortably. A little bit concerning, like the past 6 games have been decided by that 28 or less, and they have been close. There is the chance like that St Kilda can just kind of grind out another close game. It's kind of been what they've been doing recently, and like the typical Ross Lyon coach side. But I think just GWS can get a bit of another confidence boost to here. St Kilda away from Melbourne, which they haven't had to do since back in round 16 was the last time they left Victoria, which was against Fremantle, and they lost that game by 12 points. But yeah, I think GWS are going to win this by close to that 40-point margin, in my opinion. The total is 173.5. 3 of the past 4 head-to-head have gone over the total. For St Kilda, their last 3 have gone under, and for the Giants, 3 of their last 5 have gone under the total as well. Interesting here, I do think this total is pretty much spot on for this game. I marked a fair total at 171.5. So off the current number, it'd be a slight lean just purely based on the number towards the under. It's also a higher total than we've seen for the past 5 meetings between these two sides. But we know that GWS are probably going to score 100 plus, and so you're really relying on St Kilda to be kept to like 73, I guess, in this case, or maybe even less than that if the Giants go over. So I prefer the Giants side as opposed to the total. The other way you could play it is St Kilda's team total to go under. That wouldn't be a bad play either. Western Bulldogs versus Fremantle. The Dogs, $1.30 favourites, minus 21.5. It's moved up to 22.5 now. I just have the odds up, what they currently are on a separate screen. And the total is 172.5. These teams have split the last 8 meetings, 4 wins each. Fremantle won the most recent game, which was round 4 last season. The Dogs won the late game last season at home. Fremantle won the home game last year in round 7. The Dogs won at home in round 16, 2023. So the last 4 games the home team has won. 3 of those were when they were the favourite, and the Fremantle game was the one where they won as the underdog. The game early this season was won by Fremantle as $1.65 favourites, -7.5. And they won by 16 points. Looking through what happened in that game, they had 22 scoring shots to 21, so hardly any difference between them. Fremantle were just the more accurate team. It was very even through the first quarter and a half. And then this is the period that won Fremantle the game. They went on this run, 6 consecutive goals after trailing midway through, got the margin out to over 30 points. The Bulldogs slowly chipped away at that margin, got it all the way back to 10 points here with about 5 minutes or so to go in the game, but they weren't able to get the next goal, and that Murphy Reid goal sealed it for the Dockers. See what Fremantle did to win this game. Not much in terms of inside 50s, that's for sure. They're -90. Now, if that happens again in this game, there's no way they're going to be winning this one, and that's a big number to turn around. Bulldogs were +12 free kicks, even though they were on the road. Clearances +5 at the centre for the Bulldogs, +2 of the stoppages for Fremantle, so not a huge edge with either side. Bulldogs +17 contested possessions and turnovers, both in the mid to low 60s. The key, obviously, for Fremantle here is to win the ball. They need to dominate the stoppages here, which is going to be a real challenge for them. The Bulldogs this season, in terms of clearances, are the #1 center clearance side and the #1 overall clearance team, and that's going to be very tough as the Dockers are only a mid-range clearance side in their numbers, so it's hard to see Fremantle having a big edge here at these stoppages. Then you add that to what the inside 50 count was last time, and the Bulldogs are the #2 inside 50 team this season. Fremantle rank 11th, and the Bulldogs also give up the least number of opponent inside 50s. So even though +19 is a big differential, even if that comes down and they cut that in half, it's still going to be a +10, +9 differential in favor of the Bulldogs, and from there they should be able to kick a winning score. The Bulldogs have won 4 straight, 3 of those by at least 88 points. Just the game against Melbourne was a 6-point margin. At the end of the day, Bulldogs have a lot of momentum here rolling into finals. Fremantle kind of do as well. Just that loss against Brisbane, you don't want to get too carried away with one loss. Prior to that, they had only lost 1 of 12 games. So they'd gone an 11-1 run. Most of those by close-ish margins. They hadn't put too many teams away by big scores. When you look through the margins, a lot of them by around the 2-goal mark. And if Fremantle are to win this game, it's going to be by that small margin, but most likely outcome, Bulldogs win, and I think they'll win fairly comfortably. There is little chance, Fremantle knowing that they just need to win one of these last 2 games. Did they, at the end of the day, last week was the game that they were favourites. Brisbane were on demand, Fremantle were at home, and they lost by 57 points. So the only real comeback here for the Dockers is last week was just an absolute letdown. They felt the pressure and they're not going to feel it as much because now it's absolute do or die. But yeah, I think Bulldogs at the end of the day are the team with everything in their favour, and if they hold recent form, will do enough to win. And that home field advantage is really big. And at the end of the day, if this game was in Perth like it was earlier this season, Fremantle would be favourites. I do think Bulldogs are a little short, to be honest. $1.40, maybe even $1.50 would probably be a more fair price for them. So just be a little bit cautious if you're adding Bulldogs into multis and stuff, but I do think they're the most likely winner of the game. They have won 4 of the past 5 at home against Fremantle as well. The total is 172.5. The past 5 head-to-head have gone over. This is the highest total of those last 5 games, though. Fremantle, 3 of their last 4 have gone over. The Bulldogs have been a big overside as well. They've had 8 of their past 10 go over the total. So all signs point towards the overs here. Both teams do have plenty of points in them, and at this number, I lean towards the over. The way that it can go under is if it turns into a very defensive game, and at the end of the day, it's going to be played like a final. That's what this is, and so generally in finals you see lower scoring games, so just be a little bit cautious. But on general form, this is an overs game, and you'd expect around 180 points to be scored, maybe a touch over. So at 172.5, do still lean towards the over, but I am aware the bookmakers have got this number a little bit lower than what it should be, just due to the fact that finals style game. And then the last game, Sunday night, Brisbane against Hawthorn. The lines are $1.60 minus 8.5, and the total is 165.5. Hawthorn have won 5 of the past 6 versus Brisbane, but they haven't played at the Gabba since round 11, 2019. Hawthorn just never have away games against the Lions in recent seasons. Brisbane have won the last 2 at home, but obviously you're going back a long way for those games. The last time they met was round 11 this season. Hawthorn were $1.47 favourites at the MCG, but Brisbane won that game by 33 points. They had 23 scoring shots to Hawthorn's 20. Brisbane certainly the more accurate side of the two with 14 goals 9 compared to 8 goals 12. It was even right through to the midway of the second quarter, but as quite a lot of games are decided this period, in the final 10 minutes or so before halftime, Brisbane went on a run. They kicked 4 straight goals and then kicked the first goal of the third quarter and were able to establish close to a 30-point lead. They then kicked away late in the third and early in the fourth with another 3-goal run during that period and kept the Hawks just 1 goal, 4 behinds in the fourth quarter. Hawthorn only also managed 3 goals for the entire second half. Coming into this game, Brisbane are returning from that win over in Perth. It's not really an ideal situation for them. They've won 2, lost 2 of their last 4 games, but are benefiting from a 9-day turnaround. So if any situation where you're returning from the Perth trip, if you get 9 days, that's perfect. It's not like they're on a 6-day turnaround or something like that. Hawthorn, they're on an 8-day turnaround. They've had the last 2 games at the MCG, wins over Melbourne and Collingwood. They come into this on an 8-2 run with close losses against Adelaide and Fremantle during that period. Both of those on the road, which is the situation that they're in here. They haven't really been a great travel team this season, aside from going down to Tasmania, but that doesn't really count for them. Their games where they've had to travel this year, when they went to Sydney, that was in the opening round and they won by 20 points. So that has been their only other travel win of the season. They lost against Port Adelaide by 30 points at the Adelaide Oval. They lost in the Northern Territory against Gold Coast by 8 points. They also lost to the game against Fremantle by 13 and the game against Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval by 14 points. I think this is going to be a really close game. I'm not sure how I want to play it yet. Coming back over to the stats from that game, disposals were even. Brisbane +2 inside 50, so there wasn't a great deal. So definitely just came down to accuracy. The Lions had +10 free kicks on the road. Clearances definitely in favour of Brisbane, +7 and +10. This is going to be the key area that Hawthorn needs to get that back on close to even terms. In terms of their season, they haven't been the biggest clearance side, but they have been on the rise a little bit of late. Contested possessions, +18 for the Lions, and Brisbane also had 7 more turnovers. Probably this is a game that the winner will be the side that is the more efficient at going inside 50. So that's going to be really, really important. In terms of recent form, Hawthorn consistently scoring close to this 90 points, maybe a touch more in a couple of games. And if they can do that, they'll well and truly be in the contest here. Even if they're at that around the 80 mark. Brisbane, they've scored 90 plus in each of their last 3 games. So I think this is a perfect game for the try-bet, either team by 1 to 4 goals. Do think it's one that could go either way. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Hawthorn win this by a small margin. Brisbane, like the Gabba, as much as Hawthorn haven't travelled well this season, they've stayed in the contest in most of those games. And the Gabba certainly hasn't been like a really strong venue for Brisbane this season. Yes, they've beaten the teams that they should beat there, but they've lost against Collingwood at home. They lost against Melbourne at home. They lost against GWS at home. They also lost against Sydney at home. They're all teams where, or most of them, where you would look at it and say that's the game Brisbane should win. They started favourite in all of those games. That's definitely a concern. It's not like the Gabba that it was last year or the year before. So like the try-bet, like Hawthorn to definitely keep this close and maybe edge out a close win. The total is 165.5. 4 of the past 6 head-to-head have gone over. Brisbane, they've had 4 of their past 6 go under. Hawthorn, they've had 5 of their past 6 go under. So some strong trends on recent form favouring the under. On the number, I'd lean towards the over, but I think the bookmakers have put this up 5 points lower than what it should be, purely due to the fact that the pressure on this game for both sides, as it's obviously top 4 chance guaranteed for Brisbane and the chance of a top 4 depending on other results for Hawthorn if they are to win this game. And obviously lineups and everything's going to be really, really crucial closer to the game time. That's all the games for round 24. Just quickly mention the game between Essendon and the Gold Coast Suns. Now, Gold Coast are $1.03 minus 50.5 point favorites. I haven't got the trends done for this game at this stage. There's no total up for it either. But if, like, at the end of the day, Gold Coast should be winning this game. They should be Port Adelaide and they should also win this one. It's hard to see Essendon being up for this game. On the road, they've completed round 24. They're away. Gold Coast could just absolutely hammer them here. It is a night game. It's also on a Wednesday, so it's also a bit of a strange situation as well. So I think this is a game where Essendon might just throw in the towel a little bit, and Gold Coast can kind of win by as much as they really want to. We'll have a clearer picture on this game closer to once this round is completed. Then we can just look at this game on its own, but expect Gold Coast to run out really big winners. They'll have all the ball here, with Essendon giving up the second most disposals, and also Gold fairly efficient, particularly at home going inside 50, whereas Essendon don't have points in them basically at all. For the total, I'm expecting a number in the mid to high 160s, and it's going to rely on Gold Coast to do all the scoring to kind of reach that number. Yeah, we've got lots of time to pass between now and that game, but it's one that Gold Coast should be winning very comfortably. So that's my look at the final remaining regular season games. Hopefully you found this video helpful for your decision-making process for these games. That's the objective of these videos and this channel. So make sure you subscribe. I'll be posting videos through the finals. If you want to follow all my bets, that's in the description to access that, plus use the bet finder tools as well. Really appreciate you guys supporting the channel. Thanks for your time. Good luck with your bets, and I'll see you in the preview for week 1 of the finals.